Welcome to Creating Better Products, where we explore the real world stories from product leaders, not just their successes, but also their failures and their lessons learned. You will get practical tips that you can apply tomorrow. I am your host, Sabrina Mach. I have almost 2 decades of experience and I love learning from others. This is why my mission is to share the untold stories of amazing product and design professionals with you and the world. And today, my guest is Christine Kuhn. She is a senior product manager at Kleinanzeigen and is responsible for the parts of the core user experience. She has been working at Kleinanzeigen for 2.5 years, but has almost 8 years of experience as a product manager with a focus on online marketplaces. And what she really enjoys is the fast-paced environment with the unique challenges that a two-sided marketplace and its dynamics brings to her world. Christina, I'm very excited to have you on our show today.
Hi, Sabrina. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for joining me, and thank you for bringing a very interesting and important topic. We will speak today about sustainability, but not just sustainability as the general big topic, but how can we create sustainable products and how can we really build sustainability into the fabric of an organization and how it works as a business. And Christina, you've been doing quite a lot of work in this space. So I'm really, really curious to hear, how did you first get into this topic and what makes you kind of an expert on this?
I think the first time I really got aware of sustainability was I'm Gen Y. So I think our generation, it already started a tiny little bit when we were in school, and for myself specifically in university. We do know that it's even more so now with the younger generation. But when I started business and university, I do know that part of talking about economics and parts of talking about, how does the world work? It came up, and it was also a discussion point between my peers and myself. And then I think for me, one of the key moments where I started to really even understand sustainability was when I did my internship at Siemens Center for Sustainable Cities in London. So that's sort of a hub that Siemens used to have in order to, advise and provide cities with solutions and products to make to make cities in general more sustainable, and specifically also to reduce environmental impact. And I think for me, the one thing I learned there, and I think a lot of people don't have that on mind when they think about sustainability, that it's actually not only about the ecological part, but that it consists of different pillars. It's not ecological, economical, and social. And I think that was something that I really understood how tricky it is and can be to keep those 3 pillars in balance. And I think I learned also, and I saw at Siemens back then, how tricky it can be to also approach this whole topic in a authentical way, because I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, because if you don't approach it in that authentical way, and if you don't have a clear understanding of what sustainability is, it can very easily become just like a very shallow marketing theme. And I think specifically with topics like sustainability, but also topics like diversity, for example, that's the last thing that you want. You really want to, show that you believe in the topic and that it's a goal for you to go in that direction. So I think that's where I started. And then now, obviously, the past 2.5 years working as a product manager at Kleinanzeigen, I was really able to deepen my experience when it comes to sustainability. So Kleinanzeigen, for those who don't know, is a marketplace that is basically at its core has circular trade. So we're trying to encourage people to sell and buy secondhand products. So stuff that you might not want anymore, that you want to, not throw away, that you want to have a longer life period. And so basically the core of the business is very sustainable in itself already. And I think specifically at Kleinanzeigen, I learned that it's not about, trying to reduce consumption of people, because we can't do it. Specifically now with we get so many advertising and so many needs that we apparently have are put on us. So it's going to be tricky to try to get people to consume less. But what we try to do is really shift the perspective of users to try and get something that might have been used before and to give it a longer life. And I think that's in itself is already a very sustainable thought, because it's about prolonging a product's life, and can have a huge impact on the ecological part of sustainability. However, what I also understood, working at my job, that you really have to have a very holistic approach as a company if you have sustainability as one of your goals for your product, but also as your company. So what I talked about just now was the product and the communication of our product, which is very centered about circular trade and sustainability. But people hate nothing more than unauthentic companies, I believe. So I think we've seen in the past decades that also with all of the information we have nowadays, it can be really hard for companies if they're not authentic in what they stand for and what their goals are. So what we try to do at Kleinanzeigen is also to really incorporate the sustainable values and the sustainable way of working into our culture. And we are all encouraged to really live it, and people are very passionate about it at Kleinanzeigen, even outside of work. And I think that's also the only way you can do it, because it's a very specific topic that can also be quite emotional to that extent if people feel you're not being entirely honest.
Yeah, super interesting, because I mean, sustainability is a big trend right now. And I'm really curious. I mean, you mentioned a few aspects of how things are integrated at Kleinanzeigen in a way into the business model and how you do business. But what are the specific aspects that helps you and to build this really into the product and avoid the unauthentic greenwashing that sometimes can happen in organizations?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I would disagree that sustainability is a trend, because that, I think it might be a trend in terms of the amount of times we talk about it nowadays, but sustainability is definitely more than a trend. So in general, I believe sustainability is a goal that you could, as a company, have for your business, but it could even be something that every individual person has for them and how they want to live their life, and the different aspects that encompasses that. However, you're right in that terms. I think I mentioned it before, specifically with Gen Z and Gen Alpha and all of those initiatives that came up with Fridays for Future. Specifically, the ecological part of sustainability has been all around the media and has been talked about a lot. So it has some sort of buzz. Now it has had it for the past years, which obviously comes with some risk as well, because then a lot of companies, a lot of people jumped on board that don't entirely understand what an important topic it is and what it makes, or what it takes to really build it into your company. And I mean, as said, at Kleinanzeigen, our portfolio, what we do is sort of ideal for sustainability, because this is what we encourage.
Maybe a follow-up question there, and is really, we talked about how it shows itself in the organization. I'm really curious, how does it show itself in your daily work as a product manager? What does that mean concretely? Because we have the organization and the values and the people at Kleinanzeigen who are really passionate about it, even outside of work. But now, what does that mean concretely for you as a product manager in your daily work? How do you bring those values into how you prioritize your roadmap and features and campaigns?
Yeah, so I think in general, we are very much encouraged to have this sustainability as a topic and to specifically bring awareness to sustainability to our users. So it's not like that everyone that is using Kleinanzeigen is super ecologically conscious. A lot of people also come there either because it's like, cheaper, like in general, if you buy secondhand, which is really fair. So that we do also see that like in times of crisis and stuff like that, that people turn more towards reusing. There's also like the social aspect. Some people like, they're exchanging with other people on our platform. They're like meeting up, exchanging goods and money and stuff like that. And there are some people that come for the ecological factor. But I also do see it as one of my tasks to really raise the awareness of that buying on a marketplace like Kleinanzeigen is a win-win. So you do something for yourself, but you also do have the effects on the environment. And I think that not everyone is aware of that. So being a product manager, obviously, it is not like that my work is completely different to what you would usually do as a product manager. You're still trying to look like, what sort of need do I fulfill? And that's specifically when it comes to making people aware. You do have to spread a bit like what sort of message you are trying to send, because there simply are some people that are not that interested in it. But I still, think it's good to still let them know, oh, you're also doing something good. And I think for me, like a big challenge is not only like with the people that are already using us, but it's more also with those people, also like the younger ones, because there's like the ones that are already very aware of sustainability, and there are the other ones that rather go into like the areas of fast fashions. We know a lot of Asian platforms that sell a lot of cheap stuff. You get a lot of ads for it on social media. So how can you convince those people that you can also go and buy stuff secondhand, and it's even cool when you think about like stuff like vintage clothing or like, furniture that is, older, that you can maybe upcycle and stuff like that. So these are different like messages we're trying to send, and you have like different needs you're trying to fulfill there. So in that terms, I think it's completely the same as you would do in any other product management job. However, as said, what you're trying to do is still give this educational part as well, why this is super good for the environment as well, why it's socially super good.
Yeah, and what I hear is that it's really around trying to get people to switch where they consume. You mentioned earlier it's not about reducing consumption, but getting people to switch from maybe the fast fashion to a platform like Kleinanzeigen, where you can extend the life cycle of a product. How do you reach those user groups that are currently shopping elsewhere, and how do you convince them? I think that's really interesting.
I mean, ideally, it would be about reducing consumption, but that's more like that obviously is super hard to do for just a platform. So what we always say is we try to make secondhand your first choice. So similar with like other lines where you would first go to maybe a shop where they sell ecological food, and maybe you don't get everything, so you can also go to like a discounter or whatever. So that's more like, I think, what the first step would be. And I mean, Kleinanzeigen is super big, so we have a lot of users. So our reach is already very big when it comes to, in general, reaching people. And obviously, we do have a big team of people that think about all the communication outside of Kleinanzeigen. How do we raise awareness? So maybe one example of how we're trying to reach like people who are not using us yet, or that are also not aware that much what a good alternative we could be, is like our counter movement that we came up with for Black Friday. So you probably know, so Black Friday is like that day for consumption, and like the big players are really good in like creating some sort of need in people that I might not even have, mainly coming via the price point. And like a couple of years ago in Kleinanzeigen, we created the so-called Green Sunday. So it's around about the same time as Black Friday, and it's just played as sort of counter movement. It's more like, so look at us, look at Kleinanzeigen. You can have Black Friday here every day because you can buy much cheaper, and it's even good for the environment. So it's always like coming with this like additional benefit you're creating other than just buying something for yourself. And now it's even like there was always this convenience factor that Kleinanzeigen maybe didn't have as much as you would like, what some people really like. Yeah, you just go somewhere, you can pick up stuff. But now you can also, ship, products. You don't really have to go somewhere. You can pay via us. So we also like trying to get this convenience factor into much more, because that's something that might stop some people also from, going down the circular trade route, because it's just not as convenient, or it didn't used to be as convenient. And we do know that like with all users, most of them will have a couple of criteria why they choose a certain like shop, a certain platform, a certain product, not only one. And we have to be aware of that. And you can't really force yourself on them and be like that. Yeah, but you are a better person if you buy via us. So it's more like, again, trying to figure out what sort of criteria people take into consideration and try to open their mind a bit more to why it would be a good idea to use us more often.
Ah, interesting. I love the idea of the counter movement and the
Yeah.
Green Sunday. I'm curious, how do you um, how do you leverage the people who you've already convinced in helping to drive that movement? Because that sounds really inspiring, almost a political thing, even to drive forward. Is there initiatives that enable, your, I don't know, your power users, how you might call them, that are very big on sustainability? How do you leverage them as kind of ambassadors for something like that?
Like in a lot of things, obviously, we also work with like influencers and stuff like that to reach the broader audience. But with Kleinanzeigen, it's great because we have a lot of fans in the sense of people who just love using us. And I have a lot of colleagues like that myself, or even I would say I'm a power seller, so I sell a lot of stuff on Kleinanzeigen. And it's sort of sometimes also you would think it works on its own, because of a lot of people also post on social media about their own experience, because like honestly it's like human interaction, so there's a lot of fun stuff happening also on Kleinanzeigen, a lot of lovely stuff, which is also, like, if you think about it, the social component also part of sustainability. So like people have met their partner via us, or people have, like, they were really in a bad situation where they urgently needed a product on a Sunday, which we know, like in Germany, no chance to buy anything anywhere other than on a petrol station. So they were really helped out of a bad situation. And then they would post it on social media. And then again, here we can draw the line. It's super authentic, because this is not something, we pay people for telling us. It's just something that really happens and that we share, and that we also want to encourage people to say, like, look, it's great. So even like if you're just sitting there on a Sunday and you really urgently need, like what I, for example, did, like paint, you can find it on Kleinanzeigen because you didn't buy enough white paint for your wall. Or something like that. And that's, I think, comes quite naturally. And this is also how we grew. It's this really, Kleinanzeigen is this really lovely place. It's almost like neighborhoodly, where you would think, like, yeah, I'm just asking people now, would you like that? Or, trying to find something that I urgently needed. And I think that's at the core of like how we get users
Yeah.
to continue with like selling and buying on us.
Yeah, those authentic stories are definitely very, very powerful. And actually, I'd love to, I'd love to listen or read a collection of those somewhere. Um, Beyond the anecdotal stories that you shared, how do you measure and evaluate success,
Yeah.
especially in businesses? Things like sustainability as a metric can always be forgotten. I wonder, how do you measure that at
Yeah.
Kleinanzeigen overall, but then also by some of the things you shared, how do you evaluate whether the nudging that you're doing is getting people to think more sustainably? I mean, beyond shopping more on
Yeah.
Kleinanzeigen, but do you evaluate people's sustainability consciousness independently of transactions on the platform?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think there are two aspects of it. The one is really more the awareness factor, that it's more like, what we would do in measuring, like how aware our users are in general about sustainability, and also like how much it plays into their decision to buy on Kleinanzeigen. So this is just normal market research, I would say. Like, you could compare it to like users who are not using us, people who are using us. How is their like awareness of sustainability, which is what we do on a regular basis. And I mean, what you said about how you measure it beyond like what happens on our platform, I mean, it's a bit tricky because as we talked about it, the topic is very big in general. So to say now, like the impact that we played is probably not possible. It's more like we are part of the whole movement. So it goes in both directions. So first of all, it will give us more users that come to us because of the sustainable aspect, but also we, bring it into people's mind to be more sustainable. So it's sort of like goes both ways. When it comes to the more like hard facts, we do see that people that are on our platform and interact like specifically with features that go more in the sustainable direction, like everything related to Green Sunday, are more active. So there would be, using our platform more, maybe putting up more ads, writing more messages on our platform. So we do see it's not only something that is like brand awareness, which is always like in the short term a bit harder to put into numbers, but we do also see that it's a specific type of user that also likes to use our platform more frequent and in a more active way. So I think that's then often much easier to find arguments for, because in the end, for us, it's then still the same as it is for sustainability in general. You do have to balance the different factors, right? Specifically, the ecological and the economical factor, and that's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be a balance with these kind of topics.
Mm-hmm. I I would love to poke a little bit more at the topic, if I may,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to make it tangible. And I'm wondering, like any other organization, anyone, product managers listening to it, how can we really make it tangible? Because unless we have the measures that we can communicate, those topics tend to be forgotten. And for me, measures can also be small data. It doesn't always have to be the big quantitative things. It can also be those stories that you share. I do wonder, how do you really keep it top of mind so that it's part of the decision making beyond, let's remind customers of sustainability, nudge them a little bit? How can we really make that tangible and measurable beyond the normal business metrics?
Yeah.
Is there something that you've seen that worked, or things that you've tried? I'm curious, if I may, to just poke a little bit more at that and see if we can dive a little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in general about this educational part you have we talked about before. So you can't really force people that are not very interested in the ecological part to take that into consideration, like
Mm-hmm.
as a primary criteria, but it can, nudge people more into the direction, I buy this, instead of that I go to Kleinanzeigen instead of something else. And I think that comes a lot with like showing to people the impact. So like a very like common topic for that is that a lot of other companies are doing as well, is something like a calculator, how much CO2 are you saving by
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, buying this instead of that, or like even just making it aware, making people aware in general how much CO2 or waste you generate in general when you buy. Like the typical topic is the jeans, right?
Yes.
Jeans, it uses up so much water, so many resources. So how could you save that? And I think there will be some people that from the start say like, I won't buy anything that's new just because of that. But probably the majority of people would be like, I have this one option and I have the other option, and I rather take the more ecologically friendly one. So that's then more the little nudge. And that's why I mentioned before, in general, that's like what we have to do as a product manager always, right? Is to some sense there is not one need that is poked by every user. There are usually like a range of needs that we have to address, and this is also the challenge that we have, which is why we're trying to to point out like the benefits of the ecological part. And I think to some extent it's easier for us now with like in nowadays than it maybe was in the past, because the topic is so on top of people's minds that they are actively looking for it. So now it's more about really doing it in a way that it's very transparent and is again the word authentic and
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned kind of different customer and user groups and different needs. How does that affect your kind of customer segmentation and also how you personalize the experience? Are there different approaches that feed into that process?
I would say it's not more different than with other kinds of segmentation. So if you usually would go and work with personas or other like methods to segment users, you would have like maybe the same sort of needs, but in different order. So what is important for someone who I don't know, is very price conscious versus someone who is very ecologically conscious. So in that sense, I wouldn't say we do like a different approach. I think you just try to target the user with like the right message at the right time, which is like the challenge we all have, I think, as product managers to get that right. And that's not only true for the product, but also like for marketing, right? So if you try to reach the right people outside of the platform. So like in general, I think it's always a good idea to try to combine those things, because specifically when it comes to, which is like buying stuff, it always sort of quality, price, stuff like that is like, if you can convince people that this is sort of like, yeah, we check all the boxes, basically. I think that's what we're trying to do there. When it
Yeah.
comes to like the product itself, we can just see now like what sort of what are people looking for. There will be some people that specifically look for sustainable products on our platform, and there will be others that just using our platform is in its essence sustainable, but I don't even know.
Yeah, that's true. Um, well, we touched on a lot of really interesting topics, and I'm curious around what are some misconceptions that you've encountered on sustainability along your journey? And you mentioned Siemens, some interesting experience, and now
Yeah.
at Kleinanzeigen. And how did you tackle some of those?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to like people, or a lot of people that I've seen along the way that don't understand the whole concept of sustainability and the three pillars it comes with. So they always just think about it, ugh, it's that green thing, it's just the ecological part, and it's just super expensive and stuff like that. But I don't really see that. Obviously, you do have to balance it out. It's like specifically like not in this industry I'm working now at, but more like producing companies. Also, the social aspect of trying to keep it economically, like the price low, for example, often leads like to where does your labor sit and how do you pay your labor. Obviously, that also has an ecological effect. How do you get your product from A to B and stuff like that? And I felt like specifically when it came to companies that were also pointed out to being like more of the greenwashing type, they just put all of their focus just on the ecological part and painted everything green, so to say, and didn't understand that it's not only about that, and there are other aspects to look into, and that also makes it super tricky because
Yeah.
it's always a discussion, and it's always hard to say if you get it right with those sort of things, because it's like trade-offs, give and take.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is like in general, what maybe also my own prejudice in the past about like secondhand and stuff like that, when it wasn't such a trend yet, and we just started to call it vintage. Was just, it's all about those small things, broken things, cheap things no one wants. But in the end, honestly, it's also you could get everything. Like on Kleinanzeigen, I think we have like 50 million ads at a time. So you can find everything there. So it's not even like this niche, like alternative that you're lucky if you find something. You really almost find everything if you wanted to. And it can even be like fun to like browse and look for stuff. And I think that's like it's changing because people perceive that the same way, or like have this, some really like using Kleinanzeigen as sort of like a flea market to really find that one thing, that one diamond, and stuff like that. But in the past, it was definitely some of the misconceptions when it came to buying secondhand. Yeah.
Interesting. What made that shift for you in that perception, and maybe also the shift that you're now seeing in the market?
My personal shift,
Hmm.
I think it came with the education, and I think that's why I'm so adamant on trying to educate people in a lightweight way. So I don't want to be the teacher. So for me, it was really about understanding what the benefits of buying secondhand is. That's the one part I would say. So that was more of a conscious decision from my part, and then obviously it also came with like maybe moving to Berlin, it becoming really cool, me living like in a Altbau in Berlin, me buying, secondhand furniture, me going on in vintage stores and on flea markets. And that sort of then also was translated to my online behavior. So I think once you start incorporate that in your life, it's just what you do. You go to Kleinanzeigen if you look for stuff. And then, I mean, if you can't find it, you need something. I mean, no one is keeping you from buying something else, even though, you should be aware of your consumption. But I think that's what happened to a lot of people this or another way. Although I would say, like, talking to a lot of younger people, there's much more knowledge there than I had that age, honestly, about, the impact on the environment and why they would rather, look on Kleinanzeigen or similar platforms why they go to a flea market. So I think that's a very good development that we have there, that they are so much more aware already in general.
Yeah. And by what you just shared, what I find interesting also is your real world context, how that's shaping your online behavior. I think that's a really interesting insight,
Yeah.
how much that also interacts and how that shifts perceptions, like moving to Berlin, having another context, another ecosystem of values and social structures, that not just that
Yeah.
thinking. I think that's really interesting, that sometimes when we design digital products, we forget about that offline part that
Yeah,
has such a big impact on how we then
it
actually
does.
do things online.
And it's also like, I think for Kleinanzeigen, that's why it's such a special place, because we came about from, you pick up your stuff from people. So that's mainly what people like to do. Obviously, they also ship it nowadays or pay for it, whatever. But it's so much at the core that Kleinanzeigen was sort of always like this, I don't know, this it was always leading over from digital to non-digital in some sort of way, because you bought at someone else's door, basically.
Hmm.
And I think that's sort of beautiful to some extent, because you really, where do you have that like human interaction in any other digital platform, which is, I mean, some people might not like it. It's not for everyone to just meet up with someone, but for me specifically, I always had like really great interactions with people, or just normal interactions. And I think that's also plays a role why it fits so well together then, and why it influences each other even more with Kleinanzeigen.
It's super interesting. I just want to buy something on Kleinanzeigen now
Yeah,
so that I can
go do it.
experience that person-to-person interaction again. Thank you so much, Christina, for all the things you've shared already. One thing I'm wondering about, we heard so many inspiring stories around how you integrate it in your work, how Kleinanzeigen really integrates it into the fabric of the business. I wonder, when you think about sustainability, what are the things that were really hard and are still maybe very hard when it comes to that topic?
Yeah, I think it's comes down again to this balance between specifically the economic and the ecologic factor, because in general, putting everything on the sustainability pillar can be a lot more expensive in the short term. So it's
How and why?
yeah, like and you know, in general, when you look at you know, more like producing companies as well, and like it's probably easier to understand with like producing companies. The experience I made in my previous jobs is like, if you try to, for example, not have to ship your product around the world, if you try to produce somewhere, you know, closer to where you are, and even like then the social aspect of labor and how you treat labor and how do you not want to get involved with cheap labor, that can obviously be more expensive, and it probably is. So it's also like, how do you look at the long-term cost that you have as a company, and how do you take that into consideration, and also like how much emphasis you put on each pillar of sustainability. And I think that's also something that we have to be aware of in our personal life. So it can be, obviously, we know when we, I don't know, buy ecological food, for example, or more bio food, it's usually more expensive, right? But it might also be a bit better for me. I might benefit from it in the long term. And I think this long-term versus short-term view is always something that you also have to consider. And that can be tricky. It's with everything we're doing in product when it comes to making trade-offs, keeping a balance, making decisions. It's always a bit of a struggle. And I think I mentioned it before. Sometimes it can feel like you're not always getting it right. But I think you should always be aware of like where you want to go and what you want to achieve, and then like steer your initiatives and steer like in your personal life what you want to do towards that specific goal you have.
And what about you as a product manager? What are things that are still hard when it comes to the sustainability topic?
I think it's all, yeah, again, it comes down to prioritization, because like when I just look at myself as a product manager, and what my job is as a product manager is really to like solving problems and, you know, addressing user needs. So the question is me trying to communicate like the sustainable benefits, is this what the user wants at that moment, or is it other problems to address? And I think it is sort of then again a balance between this is what we set out to be as a company, and this is the message that we want to send, and this is also the challenges we need to address. So because it not always, you know, works together entirely, because sometimes people have like completely other issues that we should be addressing. And yeah, it's with everything. It's a challenge, but I think the good thing is about being like in a digital environment, it's also much easier to correct your way if you feel like you're a bit more in an imbalance, and you can shift your focus again. And I think so far we're doing a pretty good job in it, but obviously there's always more opportunities out there where we could be a bit, you know, raise even more awareness for what we are as Kleinanzeigen.
Yeah. And you're right. It is always a trade-off between different competing priorities. So that tension will always be there,
Yeah.
and we'll have to find ways to navigate that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's just with like this trade-off, that's like the most natural thing for every product manager, right? When it's like independent of sustainability. I think with sustainability, it's just more like, because it's just such a mindset like topic as well, and something that inherently feels like so good to push people towards. And that's why I also like mentioned diversity before, because it's very similar in that sort of, it's more than just a goal. It's more like also like a core value that you have as a human or as a business. It can make it a bit harder because it's not like just looking at data and then deciding, so this is the way and that's the way, is hard enough. But then if you are really, want to push in a certain direction, because this is like your strategy and this is like the core of your company, is, I would say, even harder.
Yes. And what is your recommendation for people who might be listening and who want to bring more of the sustainability mindset, like you called it, into their organization, but also into how they're building products? What are some of the first and next steps that you think they could take to
Yeah.
bring that into their organization?
I think you have to look at it holistically. So not only look at you like the message you send, like the marketing message you send, or like the product portfolio you have, and look at yourself as a company and as a culture, and also look at all three pillars. Not only look at ecologically, but also social and economically. So what steps are they that you could take, and start, within the company. Don't start with the communication, because as said, I mean, that's the riskiest part. If it has to really be authentic, it has to really be believed that that's, the goal you have for yourself as your company, or like for your product. And I think that's like key. Otherwise, I think you will very quickly fail. And it's not easy, and it can be a bit, daunting to always, try to consider the sustainable option first. But that's basically the only way. There is no shortcut, I would say. It has to be through and through there. It's not like you can't make, corrections or whatever, or that you have to go all the way. But really try to make it like integrated first in your company, in your product, before you go out there and tell everyone how great and sustainable you are as a company. Same as a person, I would say.
Yes. And you're right that it might sound really daunting, trying to really weave that into the fabric of the organization. What is something that's like a tiny step
Yeah,
that you could say, actually, Sabrina, tomorrow you could do this
yeah.
to start that first nudge, even in your own practice or in your team, to be more sustainable in the mindset?
I mean, the easiest thing usually as a company is also like really, how do you travel around a lot, or is it something that you could also do digitally and via a call, for example? Because I think like now with a lot of people working from home, it's like we sort of sometimes think like, yeah, okay, we're meeting now once, which is great, because also like as a team we do have to get along, but really be conscious about also like how often you travel, and maybe also the mode of travel you're using. And then in general, also as a digital company, also the technologies you're using, there are some more sustainable options than other. Can you somehow optimize how much waste you are producing? And I know that that sounds more like something that is difficult to like start influencing as an individual person, but at least start a conversation about that. Start, are we looking at that? Are we looking at, even now, can we reduce our you know our waste as a company, and maybe get involved with people that can influence it. And in your personal life you can do it anyway, so maybe that's also something that you could be like sharing with people, how you do it in small steps. It's more like, I think with a lot of things, it's an influence job as well. It's again an educational job, it's an awareness job.
Yeah, and actually, I find the technology aspect super interesting because your technology choice can have a significant impact
Yeah,
on how sustainable the products are that you're creating. Have you, in your work, consciously looked at this
yeah,
and worked with your technology leaders
yeah.
on those selections? Can you give an example? I'd be super curious to hear.
So we do, every year measure our own CO2 footprint as a company and try to actively reduce that. And I think the first step is already like making people aware of it. It has a lot to do with, travel as well, obviously, but also like how we, make our product, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always an effort to reduce that, not only due to the ecological factor, but it's also like it can be cheaper in the long term if you go more in the more sustainable route. And I think that's one of the example where it's really about bringing that line of thought into all aspects of your company. And it doesn't mean that as a product manager, you're responsible for all of them. But if you do it right, every person will have a part where they can contribute. And that's the one part that will have an impact also on your company financially.
Yeah. And you can ask the question, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How does our technology choice affect
Yeah.
how sustainable our product will be?
Yeah.
Actually, anyone in the organization can ask that question and
Exactly.
see,
And if
have we considered it, and has that played a factor in how we select the technology?
And I think that's when you know you've done a good job with integrating it in your values. If a lot of people ask that question, or even if a decision is made, or you have to decide for different technology, if that's taken into consideration.
Yeah, very cool. I love that. What are some principles that have made you successful in bringing sustainability into conversations and into the daily life, and really helping to shape that mindset in the organization?
I think it's also came a lot with um, looking into what why our users actually buy and use our platform, because obviously that makes it a lot easier to bring across why we should invest even more in that sort of direction. So in that terms, it's again going back to like normal product work, essential. And I can imagine that for some other companies, it's a bit more difficult when sustainability is not as closely tied to the product itself. But it's also like when we, talked a lot with the younger generation and see like what they are interested in and what they like to see from us. There we do see it's on top of their mind, and it's such as other like criteria that play into why you would make a purchase decision. It's there as well. So you try to sort of lift the priority of that criteria. And I think again, what helped a lot for us is also like just testing different things. When it came to like Green Sunday, where we actually saw like people are more engaged, then you do have the argument on your side. If you say like, if we send that message, people will actually use us more. So it's with like connecting, I think the topic that you want to raise with like actual measurements, what we talked about before with the metrics, usually helps to make it more tangible, and to helps not only saying like, yeah, we'll do that now just for the sake of it, but it actually has an impact also on the business side.
Yeah. Nice. Fascinating. So the two principles are really elevating the values and how people make decisions now, that is more driven around sustainability,
Yeah.
I heard, and then really testing things and getting that data to prove that. So it's kind of the trends and around values plus that hard data around measuring.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's where it's like super similar to like how we would usually do it. Like with like even working for other companies, when I'd have like ideas from talking to the user, or like a hint of that could be direction we could be going in. It's always much easier if you then make an experiment and see like,
Yeah.
oh, it's actually, we do actually see an impact there with
Yeah.
like what we, in the end, we are business, right? So it always comes then down to also proving that it's also sustainable economically, right?
That is a really good point.
Yeah,
That's something we need to keep in mind too. Sustainability is also the sustainable business, with all you mentioned the
exactly.
three pillars, but then there's also this one that we have to consider
Yeah,
around are we able to continue to make an impact as an organization with this
Exactly,
positive
and for that
message?
we have to be there as a business. So that's you always have to consider, and that's I mean again it's a trade-off. It always is. But if you do it right, I mean it should work together. And I mean what I also think of often, only because it's related to sustainable, even some ideas that we have also didn't work that well, so it can still be like, and not every message works, so you still have to try it out. It's like the same that we usually do. It's like testing stuff and throwing things out and trying again. And it also depends on like the users you address, and with again what kind of message you address them.
Yeah. Maybe just stepping back for a moment, I'm curious, how do you get challenged by the business? Because we talked about the sustainable business. Do you have situations where the business challenges you to make a stronger case? And then how do you do that?
I mean, there it's like very much related to what we said. I think the best way to usually do that is to try connect it with the metrics that you trying to influence in general. So like in my work as a product manager, I'm really, into or responsible for activation of users. That means like trying to get users that are on our platform to like write more messages, to put up more ads, and so on. And I think when it comes to that, sending like a sustainability message or including sustainability more in the product only is right if it also works. So if people just ignore it or don't interact with it and we can't see it, then it wouldn't work. So in that sense, it's not about, I think, convincing users, convincing the business about sustainability should be in our product. It's more like how to get it right, that we actually see that it makes people want to use our platform more.
Mm.
And in that sense, it's also because we know that it's such a um, that it's becoming more and more such an important criteria. It's sort of not about, yeah, is this the right thing to do? It's more about how do we do it in the right way, so that users actually get it. And I think that's why it's more like again testing out how it has the biggest impact on the metrics that I want to move.
And that's a really important message, right? It's not, is it the right thing to do and how do we convince the business, but how do we find the right way that activates
Yeah,
users to behave more in a certain way so that it resonates? Because we
exactly.
know it's an important topic. Now, how do we make it a reality that we are able to integrate that more into the behaviors of customers and
Yeah, and I
users?
mean that's tricky enough, but that's like with everything we do, right? It's
Yeah.
always like also like you talk with different users, and usually you get like different like feedback and different information. So it's like that job about finding the sweet spot and yeah, trying to make your product successful still, because if they're not using it, you're also not sending a message.
Yeah, that's true. Wonderful. Christina, I want to link back to the topic of this podcast, which is all around creating better products. So, my question for you, to one of the last ones, is how does the sustainability focus enable us to create better products?
Yeah, I think in general, if you really break it down, that sustainability is really a focus on, the long-term effects on your product and how you make your product durable at the end of it. And like independent of now what we talked like mostly about ecological impact and stuff like that, I think in general you should really look at how you can make your product valuable in the long term. Because I know that we as product managers struggle a lot with like often having to have short-term impact, often being stuck also with MVPs. And I mean, it takes some convincing, because it's usually not like the product manager's decision to, not have a long-term impact, but it's really where we have to start paying more attention to. And the like going back to more the ecological topic again, I think that's in general just something as it's becoming so important, same as like also people becoming more price conscious because cost of living are getting higher and higher. That sort of developments, and I'm on purpose not calling it trends, that we do have to take into consideration when we want to make our product more durable, because that's not going to change in the short term. And that's why I think it's just now aspects that we always have to consider when we deciding on what sort of products that are we trying to build and what are the benefits of this products.
Yeah, I love that. The sustainability lens helps us to bring a long-term focus to how we're creating products and to make sure that they're more durable. That's, I think, a really, really great insight. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for sharing all your experience. And my last question to Christina, where can people find you?
I think like in general, I'm on LinkedIn as most people, so you can always just drop me a message. I mean, I sometimes even get like user feedback via LinkedIn, so you're always welcome if you're using Kleinanzeigen. If you have any sort of issues, to just let me know. And I'm also around this year at Web Summit. If you're going, so maybe we'll meet there. And I'll be happy to talk to some of you.
Wonderful, Christina. Thank you so much for the really interesting conversation. Thank you for joining.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Nice. And now a question to our listeners. What is your experience with bringing sustainability as a topic into your organization? How have you been able to do this? And what were your successes and setbacks? And I would love for you to share your experience with me, either by reaching out to me directly or leave your insights in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And finally, if you liked these episodes as much as I did, please share it with your network and give us a like or subscribe in your favorite streaming platform. And by doing this, you help to elevate the voice of our amazing guests. And today that was Christina. So thank you and see you next time.